Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
Hello, and welcome to Around the Political World with John Rothman. I am your host, John Rothman. If you're a fan of the show, make sure to hit the follow button on the top right of Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you are listening at this very moment. When you hit follow, leave a review or share an episode with a friend. It helps other people discover the show, keeps us going, and as I like to point out each and every day, it expands our base. Happy New Year. This is the first podcast of 2026, and we are going to have an exciting year. There is no question about it. But I want to begin with a few things that, well, are happening right now that it seems to me we should be aware of. First, locked and loaded. That is how Donald Trump described the response of the United States, potentially, to what is going on in Iran. There is a feeling that there is a revolution taking place in Iran. It has to do not with foreign policy, not with Iran's nuclear development, not even with the United States' attack on Iran. It has to do with economics. The situation in Iran continues to deteriorate, and you can see it in the streets. Now, let's be clear. This is not like the revolution of 1979. There are not massive demonstrations everywhere, but there are, in more than 30 communities around Iran, an ongoing effort to change the government. The government is resistant to any change, and the supreme leader has made clear his position, as has the president, who I would remind you is really a figurehead. But this is where we come in. And when I say we, I mean the United States of America. Donald Trump is threatening that if, in fact, Iran turns its guns on its people, we will respond. We are, in his own words, locked and loaded. But what does that mean? Does that mean the United States is prepared to go to war with Iran? Does it mean we are willing to help those forces in Iran who need help? What does it really mean? And the interesting alternative to what Iran now has intrigues me. There is more and more talk of Reza Pahlavi, the Shah's son, resuming his efforts to take over Iran. Now, let's be clear. If there is another Iranian revolution, the Islamic Republic is doomed. But if, in fact, there is an attempt to restore the Shah, the Pahlavi family, if you will, there will be response as well. There are many implications to what the United States may or may not do. I am pointing this out now because in the days ahead, one of two things will happen. Either things will go back to normal in Iran, and the government crackdown will be overwhelming, and that will be it until the next eruption. The other alternative is that there is intervention. And remember, it's not just the United States. It's also the question of Saudi Arabia, who is still in direct competition with Iran. It is Israel. And when Benjamin Netanyahu visited the President of the United States last week, he indicated in the strongest possible terms that they are still concerned about Iran's potential nuclear capability. And of course, there are the rest of Iran's allies in the Middle East. And there are those who would threaten responses. And so there is a terror alert now. How do we respond? It all depends on the President of the United States. I have spoken extensively and have tried to make clear that when a president utters an order, the supreme commander of our armed forces, that is the president, that the armed forces has to respond. Now, this is something that everybody has to understand. When I say supreme commander, of course, I mean what we call the commander-in-chief. And so we wait now for developments with Iran. One of the things I noted over the New Year's weekend was there was very little reporting internationally. I had to go to foreign sources in order to find out what was going on in Iran. But make no mistake, let's be candid and clear that what is happening in Iran represents a vital concern to all of us. And how President Trump, and I want to underline that, how President Trump responds to the crisis will be critical. The minute the president says, loaded and locked, we'd better pay attention. And so we will be following next week the story of Iran, where we are, what happens next. But now let's turn for a few minutes to the domestic front. With the beginning of the new year, the question of health insurance in the United States becomes an even more vital topic. Costs have skyrocketed as of January 1st. Subsidies for Obamacare, as the Republicans call it, the Affordable Care Act, as others call it, well, we're seeing the costs skyrocket because Congress could not come to any extension of that particular aspect of subsidy. When Congress reconvenes next week, this will be at the top of the agenda domestically because so many millions of Americans are affected by the cost of health insurance. Those who rely on Obamacare are now thinking, how do we afford it? I listened carefully this weekend to an account by someone who said, in order to afford the continuation of their premiums, given the skyrocketing cost, the only thing they could do is borrow against their retirement. Now, let me tell you something. When you have people actively speaking about borrowing against their retirement plans, we've got a problem. How will the Republicans address it? The third major topic this morning are the midterm elections, which are now in this calendar year. 2026 is here. If healthcare premiums skyrocket, if our foreign entanglements continue to grow, how will the American people react in the midterm elections of 2026? There is a real sense of panic among Republicans, and with good reason. If, as the chair of the Republican National Committee has suggested, and if, as the White House Chief of Staff has suggested, even though he's not on the ballot, he is the central figure in the 2026 election, then Donald Trump will be judged, and the American people will turn out in large numbers. There is yet another foreign policy question which we need to talk about this morning. Maduro is worried. He has seen the increase in American activity in his part of the world. And now Maduro is saying, okay, I will meet with you anytime, any place. If you want to invest, let me be clear on the word, invest in Venezuelan oil, we can talk about it. We will welcome it. And the reason that Maduro is reacting the way he is because he's afraid. He's afraid of American intervention in his country. And this can be understood wherever we are as the question of American intervention. Are we the policemen of the world? Donald Trump made clear in his campaign that he did not want to police the world, that would not be the role of America. In fact, Donald Trump spoke relatively often about the question of our going back to our own concerns. Remember the slogan, America First? The intention of Donald Trump with America First was and is to let the American people know that we will come first. Yet, if you notice, the nature of the president's response on foreign policy, well, indicates a more unique and special attribute of most presidents of the United States. In many cases, it is easier to deal with a foreign crisis than a domestic crisis. And let me touch, if I can, for just a few minutes, on another issue. The president had chosen to deploy the National Guard to American cities. He suffered a defeat in the United States Supreme Court, and although he's not couching his retreat in the terms of a necessary retreat due to the court ruling, there is no doubt that what Donald Trump is doing now is saying, okay, I'll withdraw the troops. We won't put troops in various cities. We will be more restrained. It is because not that the cities are in better shape, not that there is less crime, but because Donald Trump perceives that he has crossed a line. At least his advisors are telling him he may have crossed a line. And that is critical because it means that the President of the United States is pulling back. He's pulling back because there is still the check and balance of the actions of the Supreme Court. And so the President and his advisors have made the strategic decision not to go ahead with plans to deploy troops in various major American cities. Now, the exception on New Year's Eve was New Orleans. He did empower the National Guard in New Orleans, but there were no blow-ups in New Orleans. There was no rampant violence in New Orleans. And in fact, the myth that the president has created of urban unrest simply isn't true. There are other issues which we are going to encounter in the year ahead, but I would be remiss if I did not come back to an issue dealing with America's health. There is no doubt that this administration has gutted the Department of Health and Human Services, that the question of, vaccines, which I thought was settled science, is back on the front page. And the author of these concerns, at the president's direction, is Robert Kennedy Jr. This has been a tough week for the Kennedy family. We've talked about the death of Tatiana Schlossberg, the daughter of Caroline Kennedy, and her blast at her own first cousin over the question of health, the question of vaccines, the question of money for research. All of these things will grow. And do you understand, as I think I do, that when you begin to attack the health system in America, whether it is what we began with, the question of subsidies to healthcare, whether it is access to the best scientists, whether it is access to vaccinations, all of these questions linger, hang over our society. For Donald Trump, 2026 is going to be a year of testing, a year in which his policies will be affirmed or opposed by the American people in the midterms, in which the Supreme Court will act and may not act in his favor on occasion, when the questions of the power of a president will be tested, when the question of what America First means will be critical, and of course, with Congress reconvening and the threat of action against Iran, more and more the American people are turning to the question of the role of the United States in the world. 2026 is going to be a year of testing for Donald Trump and a year of testing for the American people and our processes. These facts are clear, and how Donald Trump responds is going to be front and center in the news. Let me also reflect for a moment on the news itself. With Donald Trump's war against the media, a war which includes active lawsuits against NBC, CBS, ABC, CNN, and of course, his real attack now on the New York Times and many interests that he has from a foreign point of view on BBC, this question of the role of the media is going to be even more critical. Now, people ask me, John, where do you get your information? How do you choose what you want to comment on each day? It is because I survey the news around the world. I really try to understand not only what's going on in America, but what's going on abroad. The story of Iran, which we really started with this morning on this podcast, is a growing story. It has not received the attention it should, but it will. I want to close with a reflection on the tragedy in Montana, Switzerland. It is heartbreaking. When I was 10 years old, I went with my mother and my grandmother and my sister to Montana. It was a beautiful resort, up in the mountains, and it was just a fascinating moment to witness Switzerland. And now the tragedy that has taken place in Montana has shaken us to the core. Young people gathered for a New Year's Eve party, shattered by, well, a disaster. Our sympathies and our prayers are with those who have suffered in the Montana tragedy. But having been to Montana, having seen the beauty of that area, I hope and I believe with all my heart that even this great tragedy will lead to greater safety precautions and perhaps to a resurrection in Montana of a community which can truly function even in the face of tragedy. I wanted to end on this sad note, but really and truly wish you all a happy, healthy 2026. Thanks for tuning in to another episode of Around the Political World. I'd love to hear your thoughts on today's episode. You can write a review on Apple Podcasts, drop a comment on YouTube or Spotify, and click any of the links in the show notes to connect with me on social media. Remember to share this episode with a friend or colleague so we can continue to grow and expand. I tell you that at the conclusion of each podcast because that is the way we grow and expand. We are delighted that the show has been getting so much positive attention. We're excited to bring on advertising support, as you know, at the beginning and the end of this podcast. We hope this will create more opportunities for Around the Political World, and we're happy to be receiving this kind of public support. I am John Rothman, with a special thank you to Gogo Zoger, who is the wonderful producer of this program. And Gogo, warmest good wishes to you for a happy, healthy new year, and may we have another year of productive work together. I am John Rothman. I will be back on Monday. That's right. I have to remember, today is Friday. So I'll be back Monday, and I can hardly wait for you and, yes, for me to get together on Around the Political World with John Rothman. See you then.
Did you know Microsoft has officially ended support for Windows 10? Upgrade to Windows 11 with an LG Gram laptop. Voted PC Mag's Reader's Choice Top Laptop Brand for 2025. Thin and ultra lightweight, the LG Gram keeps you productive anywhere. And Windows 11 gives you access to free security updates and ongoing feature upgrades. Visit lgusa.com/iHeart for great seasonal savings on LG Gram laptops with Windows 11. PC Mag Reader's Choice used with permission. All rights reserved.
If you like the show, please take a moment to rate, review, and subscribe. It really does help the show to grow. Thank you for listening.